So that was fun, until it wasn't. All right, so yes, I was wrong about Michigan beating Ohio State, but I wasn't that wrong. But yeah, what can I say? What can I say? I mean, I know that a lot of people tend to mock the phrase both teams played hard because at the end of the day, every sporting match will ideally end in a victory for one side and a loss for the other, and there's a reason everyone wins and there's a reason everyone loses. With that in mind, this was one of those rare sporting events where I just wanted to applaud both teams. I thought both teams absolutely gave it their best. Both teams struggled. Both teams dominated. They just kept going at each other. They fought to the very end. And ultimately, I mean, you can't convince me that if this was played in the Big House, Michigan would have won. That's just how it is. I mean, home field advantage, away field advantage. This easily was the biggest game since the game of the century 2006, and it lived up to the hype. And it is my hope, as well as the hope of my one friend from Ohio State, who obviously is not impressed about this result as I am, but is that this will be the norm for years to come. Because the thing that I noticed the most about last year's win, last year when Ohio State blew Michigan out, I didn't hear a lot of gloating from the Buckeyes about it. And I think it's because deep down everyone knew last year's result was kind of an aberration. That it wasn't going to be like this as long as Harbaugh and Meyer were holding their jobs. I think what we saw today, these are the kind of games that we are going to be getting down the stretch. And even though it's not off to an auspicious start right now for Michigan, I do think we're looking at the start of a new 10-year war. I really, honestly do. All right, so there's a lot of talk about playoffs here, and I'm not going to get into that right now because no one knows how the committee's going to vote, but I will say this. I'm of the opinion that Michigan and Ohio State should not play more than one time a year. And the reason is that because I feel it kind of dilutes the magnitude of the game. Because the way it's set up right now, this was pretty much a playoff game. That's why I said this is more or less a playoff game right here. The winner goes to the playoffs. Well, maybe. We'll see what happens with Penn State. But after this showing, I don't know how you can tell me that both of those teams aren't playoff worthy. I don't know how you put Clemson in any of those teams. I don't know how you put Clemson or Washington over any of those teams. Now, of course, with Ohio State, that's going to be the big question mark. The question is like, should they go? Because they're not going to win the conference championship, technically, unless Michigan State pulls off the upset of the century, pretty much. But I don't know. I mean, I think you can make a good argument for both those teams to go in the playoff. I think Michigan could get in if Penn State goes to the championship and either of those teams win. Well, because first of all, here's the thing. Michigan's advantage right now is that they've beaten both Penn State and Wisconsin. While Ohio State lost to Penn State. So I think if Penn State wins the championship, could they pick Michigan over Ohio State? I don't know. I just don't know. But I think both of those teams, they deserve to go to the playoff. Both of those teams. I mean, seriously, can you look at this game and tell me that you're honestly going to put a Washington or a Clemson or a Wisconsin or a Penn State in over these teams? I don't think so. But I'm on the committee, so that's the committee. This is why I don't like predicting the playoff, because there's only 4 teams, and so that makes the nature of it artificially challenging, and the committee can vote on the whim. I still say that we should get an 8-team playoff. Of course, that's not going to happen until no SEC teams make it, so it'll be a while. But all right, enough about hypotheticals. Let's talk about the game itself here. I don't know if it was a case of Michigan giving the game away, but as much as Ohio State rising up and taking it, because I have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, if Ohio State's as good as they say they are, then I think with the credit I'm taking this game. Michigan's defense did what it needed to do for the most part. It forced JT Barrett basically to go into attack mode. JT Barrett had to try and do everything himself. He told people, "Step aside, I got this." And never let it be said that even though I hate Ohio State with a passion, obviously, let it be said that I don't never let it be said that I don't respect JT Barrett. I have tremendous respect for JT Barrett. He is a heck of a quarterback. I don't know if he's got what it takes to be a pro quarterback per se, but he's one heck of a college quarterback. He absolutely played his ass off today. And for that matter, so did Wilton Speight, who clearly wasn't at 100%. Didn't have a perfect game. In fact, we can argue that if he doesn't, he's responsible for Michigan's 3 turnovers. If he doesn't make those turnovers, Michigan probably wins the game. But he still went out there and played the best game that we've seen from him in quite some time. No deep balls, obviously, because he's still favoring that shoulder. Hopefully he'll be able to back to 100% in time for the bowl game, or bowl games as it were. I mean, it was relatively sad for Michigan to come up short like that, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how they did in the passing game. I thought the run game play calling could have been a little bit better. Again, not to fault Stavion Smith or anything like that. I think they did a job trying to move the chains, but there were a couple of plays where I probably would have gone outside as opposed to trying to run up the gut. But, it is what it is. Kenny Allen, of course, came through once again, did his best to give Michigan field position advantage. Unfortunately, they weren't able to take advantage of that completely, which led to Ohio State getting back in the game for the most part. The one bad spot about this game, and I'm seeing this a lot really on Twitter right now, is the refereeing. Michigan, I think, ended up with like 7 or 8 penalties to Ohio State's 2. I mean, that's home cooking. That's like the definition of home cooking right there. And there were some questionable calls, like I saw Michigan get flagged for PI by someone just breathing on a receiver. Meanwhile, our receivers repeatedly got mugged with no flags call whatsoever. So, I mean, what are you going to do there? And that spot at the end of the game where apparently JT Barrett got the first down, that led up to the winning scramble. We are going to debate for years if that was actually a first down. That's gonna go right up there with one of the greatest big controversies of college football. Also, Harbaugh just said he's really disappointed in the officiating, so yeah, that is what it is. But I don't think he got that spot. I don't think he got the first down. I think the game was over at that point. But, I mean, it ultimately is a tragedy that such an amazing game had to be marred by officiating, but, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, so, again, I'm really trying to, that's the only fault I can think of this game, because, I mean, this is just a classic football game. This was right up there with the game of the century back in 2006. It's relatively sad that Michigan lost, but, they weren't blown out of the field. They went out there, they gave it their best. Both teams played hard, and we were eyeball to eyeball. In the end, we blinked first. I mean, that's football. That happens. It's a sad end to the season, obviously. But, again, you're telling me that this team can't beat Ohio State next year in the Big House? I think at this point, a lot of noise was made that Michigan had to win this game to prove it had closed the gap with Ohio State. And even though they ended up losing, they did take them to overtime, the first overtime ever in the history of the game. I think, much like last year's Michigan State game, I think Michigan has proven they've definitely closed the gap with Ohio State. I think it's like a case where they weren't able to win today, but they did everything they needed to do in order to put themselves in a position to win. Unfortunately, all the little things didn't go their way, because that's the intricacies of football. But I think Michigan definitely made a point today that I think they are now on the level of Ohio State as being one of the elite teams in this nation. And again, I think both of them are worthy of the playoff. That's just how I think. I mean, I know neither team is going to win the Big Ten championship. I think you're telling me that you're going to put in both of these teams over Wisconsin or Penn State? I don't think so. All right, so again, that was the game. Now, once again, Michigan has at least one more game in its schedule, a bowl game, which I think will be nothing worse than New Year's Six. if everything works out, Michigan could end up going to the Rose Bowl. So, we'll see. We'll see. I think Michigan will win the bowl game because I think when Michigan's at their best and Wilton Speight is 100%, they can take on any team in the country. Heck, Wilton Speight was 100% today. Took Ohio State down to the wire, so that's proof enough. But I think this team is going to have a bowl game. Again, to look back on this season as a whole now, and I'll do this now because I don't want to forget it down the line. My goals for this season was 10 wins and to compete to be in the picture for the Big Ten championship. In that regard, they succeeded. And I know a lot of people are disappointed that, the actual Big Ten championship and the national championship still not quite there yet, which honestly is what I expected. I didn't expect Michigan to seriously challenge until like year 4 or year 5 under Harbaugh, so thereabouts. So the fact that they're on this path right now is very encouraging to me. But I can totally understand why people might be frustrated. Because Michigan has now shown that they are not allergic to prosperity, that the first year wasn't like a Brady Hoke style flash in the pan, that they can compete at the level of these elite teams in the nation. Now, you've got to make it pay dividends. Now you've got to take the next step. I mean, you can't be like, a SEC squad that wants to be crowned with no rings. Hi, Tennessee. Now you have to go like, all right, you can't be here like, oh, it's no big deal that we haven't beat Ohio State for the last 6 years. It's no big deal. Nothing like that. You have to take the next step at this point. And I think Michigan is at the level where from this moment on, and granted, this outcome was going to be true regardless of the outcome of the game. From this moment on, I think the expectation for Michigan is a national championship every year. And this isn't like, romanticized feelings of a national championship or a Rose Bowl like we had back in the Brady Hoke or Rich Rod days where we felt like entitled to it because we were Michigan. Now Michigan's shown they can compete at the level. Now, and Michigan, even though they're going to lose a lot of seniors, they got a lot of talented guys coming in. Next year, this team, I think, will continue to progress offensively. We could be looking at one of the most lethal offenses in the Big Ten, if not the country. Speight will be back, and he'll continue to improve as a quarterback. He'll continue to be better. And I don't know if O'Korn has year of eligibility. I think he does. Peters will be around too. And a fellow by the name of Dylan McCaffrey will be waiting in the wings. So very excited there for offense. Defensively, I think the defense will take a step back in the sense that they'll go from being the best in the country to one of the best in the country. But like I said, I just don't know. I mean, I'll have to look at the recruits, how they pan out. I thought Rashard and Gary had a pretty decent year, pretty decent first year. And some playmakers on the defense that will have some very big shoes to fill, particularly in the secondary. But I think I'm not seeing like a dramatic talent drop off for Michigan. I'm not going to be one of those people saying, oh, well, now they're never going to win a championship because, this was supposed to be the year. I think they're going to get into like a style we see with the Ohio States or Alabamas of the world where they just constantly reload, they constantly bring in new talent. And again, even though they didn't come away with the win today, I think they've proven they can be on par with Ohio State and with the Alabamas of the world. That's going to pay big dividends for recruits. And it's still going to be a battle between Michigan and Ohio State. Like I said, I think we're seeing the start of another 10-year war here. But the future, this is by no means, even though a disappointment today, I'm by no means depressed about the season, or I consider the season a failure. I mean, Michigan still has one more game. They're going to go get a bowl. They'll probably win that one. And, all right, write it down. And I think this team has definitely proven they have what it takes to be at the top of the college football world. All right, so that's it for my recap today. Again, I will try to get one in for the bowl game, but I don't know if that's going to be because I don't know if I'm going to be going to this bowl game or what have you, or if Michigan makes the playoffs. I don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen at this point. But thank you all for watching, for sticking around this season. Once again, another good year for Michigan, I think. But now, of course, the question is, can we sustain this success? And I think Michigan can. I think Michigan's in a position to become one of the best teams in the country. They're in a position they have a foundation they need to build on to win the national championship. And they're going to beat Ohio State next year. Until I'm wrong, I'm not. But all right, thank you all for watching, and as always, go blue.